Zachariah here. I'm going to try something a little bit different than usual and get my ugly mug out of the frame and get the pedal in the frame. So today we're taking a look at the JHS Crayon. The JHS Crayon is a really cool overdrive / distortion that's based on their larger color box. The JHS color box is a replication of two Neve channel strips stacked in series together to provide mountains and mountains of gain and distortion. And the color box also featured a 3-band EQ, a high-pass filter, and two controls for the gain that let you really fine-tune how much gain you want to have. And then it also featured an XLR output on the other side to allow you to use it as a direct box and other things like that. The Crayon takes all the stuff of the color box, like, you know, the distortion is basically like a distortion box version of the color box to really kind of simplify some of the feature set and just provide you with that crushing, crazy distortion. Basically, the goal of the Crayon and the color box is to take your beautiful sounding clean tone and make it sound like your amp doesn't exist anymore and you're just plugging into a console and cranking the gain to all high heaven. Like I said, the Crayon has some simplified controls. Let's go over the I/O and then we'll touch on the controls. So we have an input on this side using a Neutrik jack. It's really good. On this side we have the output using the same type of jack, and on the top we have a center negative 9-volt DC power input, and I believe it draws less than 100 milliamps. I mean, it is an analog overdrive / distortion, so it should draw, you know, under 50 actually. But they always say 100, and most power supplies provide that. The enclosure is the classic JHS compact enclosure. It says JHS on the front and Crayon, and then it has the little Crayon icon, which I think is very cool. And then we have, you know, red lettering used for the labels. It's all screen printed on here. Nothing's really insane. There was a sticker on the back, which I think I ripped off, or it was ripped off when I bought it, because I bought it used, and I put some dual lock on here to attach it to my pedal board. So, like I said, the feature set's simplified, but there still is a bypass switch. It's obviously a true bypass switch hence the loud clicking. There is a master output volume, of course, which gives you control over the level. Here we have this control called pre-volume. Pre-volume basically is just your amount of input gain that this pedal has dialed up. Now on the color box, this was split into pre-volume and then this like gain step control. So you'd like 5 steps where it raised the level of gain on the two preamps that were stacked in series, up together. So it would lift the gain of both stages simultaneously in 5 coarse steps. And then you had a pre-volume, which was like a trim basically for those gains. In the Crayon, they decided to just simplify it to just one gain control that lets you go from nothing all the way up to there's so much gain that when you hit a note, it just cuts out. The signal stops passing, which I think is awesome. Let's cover this EQ control. So there's a control labeled EQ, and what this is it's a tilt EQ. So basically there is a low shelf and a high shelf filter, and when you have the EQ set in the middle, both are flat, but then as you wind it this way, it's going to reduce, it's going to cut high frequencies, and it's going to boost low frequencies to kind of tilt the EQ this way, and as you go the other way, it's going to of course do the opposite, cutting bass and boosting treble. So obviously not as much flexibility as the 3-band EQ in the color box. There's a high pass filter, again like the other controls on the Crayon, it's simplified, so you simply have an on and off toggle, and then on the side of the pedal right here you can see we have a selection for the cutoff frequencies. You can select either 200 Hertz or 750 Hertz for the cutoff frequency of the high pass. I find this control to be extremely useful. 200 Hertz is a great way to kind of tighten up that bottom end if you need to fit in a band mix. 750 is really insane, so if you're trying to go for like a really lo-fi, really thin, pointy sound that's really gonna cut, 750 is good for that. But normally I would leave it in 250 unless I'm kind of going for a special effect. Okay, my thoughts on the color box. So I did a little demo, guitar, bass. This thing sounds insane. It can do really subtle stuff, you know, subtle tone shaping, you know, kind of boost the highs, cut the lows type of thing, or really cut the lows. I can make it kind of more lo-fi by rolling off top end and using the high pass filter quite aggressively. Or I can just make it sound really, really thin if I want, like that. And with the, you know, the volume down, or the pre-volume down. But then I can really go nuts and make it really woolly, thick, farty sounding fuzz like this. Or I can make it a little more full range and easier to play like this. So it's really great for these kind of blown out, insane sounds that you can't, like, yeah, you can replicate with, you know, your, you know, by overdriving the A to D converter in your audio interface, but I think this pedal's really fun. It's a really fun tool to have for live use, I think. I think the color box is just a more useful tool in the studio, if I'm being honest. Just by its feature set. I mean, and the new one has an XLR input, so you can actually run mics through it and use it as a preamp, whereas this one you're stuck using it just for guitar unless you get some converter, and then you're gonna have unbalanced inputs, and it's just, you know, it's a whole thing. The design, I think, is really clean. It's the classic JHS, you know, two-tone look, where you just have one color for the knobs and the logo and the screen printing, and then one color for the enclosure, and then of course black accents. Which is really great, or black and silver accents. I guess there's chrome. So I think this pedal is really useful, but I don't think it's for everyone. It really is kind of an acquired taste. And so I think charging $200, is it worth the $200 entry price that JHS is asking for it? Maybe. And I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with buying it, trying out, and then selling it, but also there's quite a few used ones floating around. I got this one for $150 at Old Town Music in Portland. It was a good purchase. I enjoyed it for a few years, and I had a lot of fun with it. And it was really fun to actually, like, just run this direct into my interface and just not have any amp simulator or anything on it. And it just made this just disgusting sounds. It was just beautiful. I think if you play bass, you should check this out, but you should also check out the color box as well, because it offers more tone shaping options and an XLR output. If you play guitar and you're into kind of this, there's a lot of kind of a big movement in the alt guitar community to kind of make these kind of sounds. Like if you listen to the Bleachers, Young the Giant was doing a lot of sounds like this on like the Silver Tongue album, Welcome to America, I can't remember, something like that. That album, they used sounds like this all over it, that kind of direct distortion without an amp kind of sound. So I don't know, I think it's really useful, I think it's really cool. You should check it out, I've really enjoyed it.